بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Continuing from the last session, the scholars, after describing the cause and effect relationship between the realms of Tawheed and ethics and actions, then they go on to the next stage and say that we also have a heaven and hell of actions, a heaven and hell of ethics. So the heaven of ethics is the heaven you acquire and you make for yourself by means of the actions pertaining to the Sharia, executing the wajibat, refraining from the muharramat. These actions create your heaven. Moment to moment, as you are living in this world, you are creating, right now, you're creating your heaven. So your heaven exists right now, and it's a function of your actions. But the heaven of actions pertains to your actions of the Sharia. And were you to do the wajibat, refrain from the muharramat, you're building, you're creating a very good heaven of actions. Heaven has degrees. The lowest is that of the heaven of actions, the heaven of the Sharia. But then we also have a heaven or hell of ethics. So the hell of actions would be when you don't commit yourselves to the wajibat, the obligatory actions subscribed, the obligatory mandatory actions stipulated by the Sharia, or if you commit yourselves to the muharramat, the forbidden or prohibited actions stipulated by the Sharia. If you were to not do the wajibat, or if you were to commit the muharramat, you would be building right now your hell of actions. So heaven and hell are a function of your soul. Depends what you're doing with it. The actions that your soul commits, you are incorporating, building within yourself that heaven or hell of actions. But then we have a heaven and hell of ethics. Here too, you are the creator. You are the generator of your heaven and hell of ethics. But here, the scaffolding isn't doing the wajibat or not doing the muharramat. Here, the scaffolding, the ingredients, the core material to your heaven of ethics is tantamount to the incorporating of the ethical, noble traits. The noble ethical traits, the makarim al-akhlaq. Not holding on to grudges, forgiving people, helping people, not being silent in the face of oppressions. Those that were listed, for example, in the supplication number 8 of Sahifah Sajjadiyah. So here, were you to incorporate the noble ethical traits, what happens is that you would be creating your heaven of ethics. Now, the heaven of ethics is a much more blissful place. It's a much more blissful paradise, blissful dimension compared to the heaven of actions. They're both heaven, but there are different degrees to heaven. This heaven is of a much more loftier position compared to the heaven of the actions, the heaven pertaining to the Sharia. And so this heaven, the heaven of ethics is a heaven pertaining to the tariqah. The heaven of actions was pertaining to the sharia. It's one heaven, but it's multidimensional. But the multidimensionality pertains to the cause and effect relationship between ethics and actions. And as we said in the previous session, that the ethics has a precursor role compared to the actions of the Sharia. The reason that we succeed in the Sharia is because of our success pertaining to the tariqah, pertaining to the spirit of the Sharia, pertaining to the noble ethical traits. And so the heaven of ethics is a much more noble place compared to the heaven of actions. And on the same note, the hell of ethics is the hell which is a result of you incorporating the vicious traits, the vicious dispositions of the soul. For example, anger, not forgiving, not being generous, being silent in the face of oppression, jealousy, and all those different traits that we were seeking refuge from in supplication number 8. And so here, the hell of ethics is something we really have to fear. And since we are the directors of our hell, hell is a product of our own actions. We are our actions. And we're going to see our actions after we undergo a physical death. That heaven and hell exist right now, but they don't appear before us because we're drowned in this physical realm. However, once we detach from this physical realm, after a physical death, then that heaven or hell, depending on our actions, depending on our ethics, will appear before us. It won't start because it's already started. It already existed. But it will now appear before us. Although the potential for it to appear before us, even whilst we're living in this world, is possible. But that's a different discussion. I don't want to enter that right now. So, and then there's a higher heaven or hell, and that is the heaven and hell of aqa'id, of tawheed. And this has a precursor role to ethics, which has a precursor role in relation to actions. And the heaven and hell there is even worse. If you remember, we said those ethics which stem from tawheed is of spiritual value. Humanitarian ethics is a very limited dimension of Islam. Those ethics which emanate from tawheed, that's important. And I think I gave one or two examples. For example, if someone steals your money, since you believe all property is Allah's, it won't affect you. You won't get angry. You won't complain. You'll do your best to get back the money, but you won't complain. You won't hold on to any grudges. You just do your duty. It was Allah's from the beginning. Or if someone is disrespectful to you, you won't get angry because that person can't take away your honor. Innal izzata lillah jami'a. Honor is Allah's, all of it. No one can grant you honor independently, only Allah. No one can take your honor from you. This is tawheed. It's practical tawheed. This practical tawheed, the more it's incorporated into the heart, the more your heart believes that all property is Allah's, all honor is Allah's. And this applies to all attributes of Allah, the more this is incorporated into your heart, the more you will succeed in incorporating the ethical, noble traits. And the more you succeed there, the more you will succeed in the Sharia. And then we spoke of that synergy between then the Sharia and then ethics, and so on and so forth. So now a question may arise. What if someone is a non-believer, and therefore, for whatever reason, they didn't have access to true Tawheed? How are we going to, what is the equation in relation to them? And then another question arises. What happens? How will the equilibrium be created between those who have succeeded in the Sharia but they failed in relation to the Tariqah, or vice versa? These are questions which have to be touched upon. Inshallah, we'll mention this. We'll start from this. And there's a very golden principle that Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh has mentioned. We'll continue with this part in the next session, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.